Welcome to Bonding, a kinky podcast hosted by me, Sarah Butcher, aka Sub in the City. I'm a BDSM coach, kink educator, and proudly collared submissive, with over a decade of experience on the BDSM scene. I'm on a mission to bring BDSM into the 21st century and empower curious kinksters like yourselves to consciously explore what BDSM means to you. In this podcast, you'll hear me talk about all things kink. So whether you're new to the scene or you're a long-standing member of the community, welcome kinksters. I'm looking forward to bonding with you. Hi everyone, welcome back to Bonding. I am super excited for this episode because today I have with me my Dom.
Hello everyone, my name is Carlos, I'm Sarah's Dom, and I'll be answering a lot of questions that you have been sending us.
Yeah, so some of you who have been to some of the events in London, you will have already met him, but I'm really excited to be sharing a few more personal things about our dynamic and answering your questions about kink today. So, some of you have been sending in your questions, so let's dive right in.
Very interesting questions, by the way.
Okay, so the first question we have is, what were the first things you saw, heard or experienced that made you realise you're into kink?
Before knowing about BDSM, I didn't know I was a dominant, but I felt that sometimes I wanted to sort of dominate someone or do certain things to my partner at the time. But I couldn't express it, I couldn't see it as how could I navigate this, how could I speak about this with my partner?
Mm-hmm. And was there anything that you saw like in movies or something that made you think that you wanted to do this?
Yeah, there were things in certain movies that I thought, ooh, that sounds exciting, that looks exciting. I wonder what it feels like to spank someone really hard or to have a submissive all by yourself and do anything, obviously with consent, but anything that you wanted to. Yeah. And I'm sure that a lot of people go through life not knowing about BDSM, but maybe watching the movies, things that you sort of secretly go, ooh, that's nice. And maybe everyone else is like, oh my God, that's terrible. Why is he doing that? Why are they doing that? But secretly you're like, yeah, I know what you mean, but I wonder what it feels like to do that sort of things.
Mm-hmm. And did you ever feel then that you had to kind of hold back that side of you?
Yeah. At the beginning, I always hold that back. I never had the courage to tell my partner, my previous partner, oh, do you remember that movie that we watched? Do you remember that scene? I wonder what it feels. I never got the courage to do it. I always thought about it and I always fantasized about it. But it was always something very personal because I was worried and I was ashamed of expressing that to my partner.
So what's the difference in this relationship with us, do you think?
Well, it's the world of difference, obviously, because now thanks to you, I dive into the BDSM world a few years back, and I realized that with communication, consent, respect, and aftercare, you can actually talk about those things that you wanted to do and go on and do them together.
Yeah, I mean,
without any shame.
I don't want to take all the credit. It is our communication that has made us be able to create the dynamic that we have today and the things that we do today. So communication definitely has to be on point.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's taken a long time to like get to a point of good communication. You know, it does take practice and we're still growing and learning ourselves.
Yes, you build the foundations at the very beginning, and this is advice that I go for everyone sort of at the starting of their journey. The first bits of your BDSM journey are always very well founded by communication. You can build so much if you have a good communication, and from the very beginning you start talking about things that you want and you don't want. You can build so much. You can build a universe just for you.
And I think it's really important to be patient as well, because there are fantasies, for example, that we have discussed a lot since we've been together, that we've had some kind of experience in them, but we know that we're still growing and developing that. And so we haven't had super perfect experiences, but we're still kind of taking it slow to explore those. So just for anyone who thinks that, maybe looks at us and thinks that we have like it all figured out, nobody does, and we're all still like working towards building on our dynamic and the things that we want to achieve, because you can't do everything all at once. And actually I always say, it's a long game. You've got to work to build on these experiences, which makes it really fun, because it means that we've always got something new and exciting that we're working towards.
And if there is something in the back of your mind that you want to talk about, that you always fantasize, is in the darkest secrets of your mind, go there and visit that place and see yourself telling your partner, your play partner, whoever it is that you're practicing BDSM with, that you're building this communication, say, oh, there is something that I always wanted to try. Because that actually happens to me. I knew that Sarah was an educator and I wasn't really, getting involved with it. And then one day I said, I'm just going to ask her. I want her to help me navigate all these, and again, communication. You have some like sort of dark kink that you want to explore. Find a way to bring it into a relationship, to bring it into the table as a conversational point. Yeah,
I think it always needs to be a conversation first and foremost, and that's kind of how it started with us, because even though I already knew kind of a lot of the things that I was into, we went right back to basics. We did the limits and boundaries checklist together. We did the negotiation sheets. We had the conversations, and then we started sort of playing around with like tiny little things to begin with, and then it kind of just developed from there. So this is what I mean about when you are looking for someone experienced within the BDSM world. No one is really experienced. I mean, I've obviously been engaging in BDSM for many, many years before I met Carlos, but when we got together, it was starting from scratch completely, and I've learned so many new things about myself, and actually things that I liked back then are not a major part of what we do now, and things that I never thought I would be into are some of the main things that we incorporate all the time. So and
it's a journey of discovery. At the beginning, I remember Sarah saying, you're gonna feel like you're a kid in a candy store, because there is so many things that you suddenly, once you bring to the table, you go, oh my god, so if we can try this, can we also try this, and can we also try this and this? So there are so many things that you need to bring first to the table, talk about them, and go slow. You need to build up to wherever you want to get. Next question.
So what advice would you give for dating, finding a long-term partner who is compatible with your kink? Do you want to take this one? Or?
You take it.
Okay. Well, I guess for me, I manifested this wonderful being right here. And I mean, a lot of you know my story already. I spoke about it a little bit in the previous episode, but I was so adamant on finding someone who had had previous experience being a dom, because to me that meant that I wouldn't have to show someone what they needed to do. I was really against it. And actually it was only when I kind of stopped putting the kinks as a primary thing that I was looking for that I found what I was looking for. But it is different for everyone, and it really depends, is that question, are you looking for a romantic partner or are you just looking for a play partner? I mean, that would make things very, very different. So, but what I would say is, again, the buzzword, communication. You need to be vetting your partners up front to make sure, not to make sure that they have experience necessarily, but to make sure that they are willing to learn and grow. They're interested in learning about you, your desires, why you like them, but also wanting to know you as a human being as well. So do their values align with yours? Do their beliefs align with yours? And really being quite clear in, I don't want to say deal breakers, but things that are your hard nose, and to not compromise on that. I think I did a lot of compromising in my past, and it just never works out. And we definitely compromise in our relationship, but it doesn't feel like in a bad way. You know, we're having a discussion
Yeah.
and we're talking about the things that we like, and we're able to create scenes or create experiences around what we both like.
I think it's important to start with the basis that everyone is kinky. Everyone is kinky. So my advice would be not to go out on the dating world with just people that are into BDSM or into kink, because everyone is kinky.
Very good point.
Just go out and try to meet someone nice, someone open-minded, someone that is good in communication. This is something that has nothing to do with whether they like BDSM, they know about BDSM, they are into BDSM. If you meet someone that is open-minded, good communicator, then the likelihood of that person navigating the world of BDSM with you is going to be very high.
I've tried that method of going in with, hey, I'm Sarah, I'm a submissive and I'm into this. And while that can be great if you're looking for a play partner, if you're looking for a romantic partner, what I found that did for me was just put in people's minds that all I was interested in was sex. It's by no means a bad thing if you're looking for someone to play with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would definitely, there's always a right time to bring up kink, and that really depends a lot on your gut instinct, for one, and when it feels right, and when it feels authentic to you as well, I think is key there. But also, as you say, meeting people who are open-minded is the most important thing.
To meet someone that has no knowledge of BDSM, and then in time you start navigating and exploring that word, and they turn out to be very, very kinky and exactly what you were looking for, which is what actually happens here.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important as well, to potentially respect someone else's pace.
Yeah.
So you could meet someone who you're gelling really well with on like a vanilla level, and maybe they're not ready to talk about their kinks. And I think in the past I would have been like, okay, thank you, next, like move on to the next person. But if you feel that there is a genuine connection with that person, then I would definitely pursue that. If they're open to it, if they're indicating that they're open to it, but they want to go a bit slower, if you can have the patience to build on that, then it can turn out to be something really beautiful.
I reckon patience is a key word in the answer to this question, actually. Yeah,
patience and knowing your worth, I would say, is not settling, but also not just skipping to the next person when you don't get the answer straight away that you want. So being open to communication for sure. Okay, next question. How have you found taking your kink into the medium of talks and workshops? So I guess this is a two-part question because I went into it just before I met you. And for me, I kind of always knew that I wanted to be educating in the kink space. From the moment that I realised that I was kinky, that was kind of the whole drive. And my personal and professional journey go hand in hand, really. So when I first realised that I was into kink, I really didn't feel that there was much education out there and not much discussion around it, which made me really think into the future. You know, I would love to share my knowledge with other people when I can. So for me, going into workshops and talks on it felt very natural. It felt like a natural progression and evolution for me. And to be honest, it only really, really flourished, and I really found my confidence when I met you. I mean, you're my number one fan.
Yeah, I am. I guess for me, I was very lucky to met Sarah because she was already in the education mindset. So she was very patient with me, and obviously once we start going into the socials and workshops, people are super nice. People that are kinky and into BDSM generally are people that are very open-minded.
Yeah, but I do feel like in the beginning you were perhaps wanting to stay a bit more behind the scenes, and it's been so nice to see you sort of really come out of your shell and want to be more involved. Like a couple of years ago, I don't think we would be sat here on this couch.
I didn't have the information and the experience that I have today after 2 years of exploring this, to be sitting here and talking about it, because again, going back to the beginning, I had to have that foundation to build upon. And seeing you being an educator inspire me to sort of help you be a bit more involved. A lot of people come up to me in her workshops and ask me lots of questions from the Dom point of view, which is something that is highly valuable for certain people.
And I really value having you there and being able to answer those questions from that perspective, because obviously, yes, I am the educator, but I don't claim to be an expert. I don't claim to know everything. And the one thing I always say is that everyone's experience is so unique and so different. So it's really great to have your perspective from the Dom. I'm purely submissive. So to have your opinion there as well, to be able to share with others, it's been really, really valuable, and it adds so much more to the workshop.
One thing that I wanted to say for anyone who is thinking of attending one of Sarah's workshops but is a bit skeptical or nervous, either because you're on your own or you're not very sure, just come and try it. It's super relaxed. Everybody in there had been already where you are. They all know that if you're a newbie, people will welcome you with open arms. I hear a lot of people that are newbies talking to the old ones saying, oh, I remember when I was at your point, I was so nervous. Everybody says the same. Oh, I was so nervous, I wasn't sure about coming. So take that as an encouragement to come and speak and meet people. You can use a different name. You can, be whoever you wanted to be. Surrounded with people that are all kinky.
Yeah, I think, we do hear that a lot, that the socials really allow people to come and be this other part of themselves, like that other identity that they have, in a really safe and welcoming space.
Or talk about things that they wouldn't normally talk to their peers.
If you're new to the workshops, then I always just send you over to Carlos to have a chat.
I'll try to sort of get you to meet and hear from first-hand experience BDSM kinks does. Okay.
What does being submissive mean to you? So, I think being submissive means something different for everyone, but for me, I just love being able to let go of control. It's as simple as that. The fact that, in my everyday life, I'm running a business, I'm very much in that educator space where I'm leading and talking, and for me, being able to be submissive just allows me to let go of all of that, let go of responsibility. And I'm someone who, I know I'm very much in my boss bitch mode most of the time. I'm very much in my masculine. I'm very wanting to lead all of the time, and I'm the organizer, and I like to have everything organized. So, and I find it quite difficult to slow down, calm myself. I have to make sure that I meditate and things like that, and submission in a way is kind of what that does for me. It really allows me to slow down, to be in my feminine, and to really receive from you, whatever that may be, and to have you in your masculine and really leading. And I just love that. It just, that's what turns me on, right? And I love just being able to fully let go into whatever you decide. And there's the, that taboo element of that, should I really be enjoying that? And sometimes it is a struggle, because I am someone who is very much wanting to lead in my daily life. So being submissive to me is just beautiful, because it allows me to let go of control. It allows me to also to surrender to being taken care of. And I think that's something that I have to work on, both inside and outside of the bedroom, is to allow him to really take care of me. And I think I've done that so much more over the past couple of years, and it's just really nice and gives me all the feels. So
that's very good. Very good.
So what about, I guess for you, what does being dominant mean to you?
It's a very difficult question to answer in few words, because it means so much. So I see Sarah in everyday light as a big sphere of bright light with different colours, going from one place to another, moving around. And when I am the dominant, I get to control that light and concentrate the light on the sphere. So it's brighter and brighter. So the light is so concentrated.
It's like shining light on the shadows.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love that description.
And I can control the sphere and do what I like with it. And I play with it and I caress it and I'll make it more intense, less intense. Having that power, having that control over that beautiful light fills me with energy. It is reassuring, is loving, is caring, is playful, is spicy, is horny, is kinky, very soft. You know, it's having that sort of control over that beautiful light.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that you have a really nice balance between like the soft dominance and the more intense and hard dominance. And he's so caring and will do things like, you know, making sure that I drink enough water and all of this kind of stuff, which I absolutely love. And I probably never before would have considered that like dominant.
Me neither, actually. I've never thought that. Come on, drink some water, keep hydrated was...
And he'll literally give it to me and stand there and watch me until I've drunk it and, you know, giving me the dom eyes. So who knew that drinking a glass of water could turn you on? So yeah, I think nice answer. I like that. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, next question. What are the best ways to maintain DS relationships over long distance? And I guess for us, we live together, we're never really apart. But that being said, there are still ways that you can keep that alive when you're not together. And I think there are certain things that we do when we're not together that can help us sort of stay in that headspace and that mindset of being dominant and submissive.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of many ways of people being able to keep their dynamics over distance. Maybe a word, maybe a time, maybe a rule.
Rules, I think, are so important. And well, I think the main thing for long distance comes back down to consistency. I think it's the same for any dynamic. But having some rules and rituals in place that can be done long distance are the perfect way to allow you to drop into that headspace, even if the other person isn't there. And even if that other person isn't available at that time and you're just wanting to connect with either your subspace or your top space, engaging in those rituals can be a really nice way to...
What sort of rituals would you recommend? What sort of, being very specific?
So yeah, I think a really easy rule or ritual that you can implement into your long distance dynamic is making sure you're checking in with each other on a consistent basis. So whether that be like first thing in the morning or whether that's in the evening after work, but just making sure you're coming together to connect. And if you can't do that on a daily basis, just as consistently as you can, even if that can't be, you know, over a video call. You know, ideally it would be lovely for you to see each other's faces or to have a phone call, but if you can't do that, even to just have that text communication, and using the language and the words that you would when you're in your dynamic. So making sure you're referring to each other by the honorifics that you use perhaps, or just the kind of language that you use with each other that will get you into that headspace. And you can also set out like different tasks, and maybe if rules and punishments are a part of your dynamic, to include those long distance as well. If you want to engage in a bit of play when you're long distance, then talk about what that could look like. Perhaps there are rules that the submissive has in terms of masturbation or
orgasm
solo play.
Control.
Yeah, long distance orgasm control, that kind of thing. So just to bear in mind that the rules and rituals you have in place in your everyday dynamic will not be the same rules and rituals that you have when you're long distance. So you may have two different sets of rules and rituals.
I feel like every relationship, long distance relationship, is going to be hard. And just because it's BDSM relationship dynamic, it's not going to make it any easier. It's going to be just as hard. So you're going to need a lot of checking in, a lot of communication, a lot of patience. So anything that you built at the very beginning, you're going to need more of.
But the great thing is the fact that this is a BDSM relationship means that you already have all the tools in your toolkit to be able to make it work.
You have the foundations, basically.
And also just to know that you don't need your partner to be there to be able to be in that headspace or get into that dynamic. So if, say, for example, one partner is on a business trip, you can set your partner tasks or things to do even when you're not there. So you don't have to be there and witnessing it, but they can do it. And maybe they want to report back to you later about how that went. But yeah, as I say, it's having these things that you can do separately, but then always being able to then come and reconcile together and have that communication, that debrief, that check-in, and just reminding each other that you're still very much in touch with the dynamic that you have and that neither of you have forgotten about that.
Also, bear in mind that aftercare would be slightly different for people in long relationships, because aftercare might be that the person wants to, go to sleep or watch something. Obviously, you're not there, so don't take it too personally. That person needs some aftercare without you. Always communicate that. Right, okay, so next question.
Okay, so this one is a question about our dynamic. What is the ratio percentage of time you spend on vanilla and kink in your lifestyle? Do you have any tips on splitting this time?
Very, very good question again. We don't have a set amount where it's 50% and 50%. That changes all the time. There are weeks that we are doing 80-20, weeks that we're doing 20-80. We don't have like rules for when that happens, but we make sure that we carry that dynamic at some point, at some level.
Yeah, I think we've had a very busy couple of years. We bought a house, we got a puppy, and so we're very flexible in terms of when we engage in play and our dynamic. But I always say that we're in a 24/7 dynamic because I feel very much like we are dom and sub, and I have my collar that I wear all the time. And
that collaring, after I collar you, that enhance that dynamic is not that we are more at it, but I only have to touch the collar for her to feel like a submissive, or I only have to say certain things or a word or a look just for that dynamic to bubble back up in our vanilla life. If we're doing something, I don't know, washing the dishes or doing some laundry or something very, very boring, I only have to give her a look or a small spank and she knows exactly what I mean, and that sort of bubbles up at that moment, and we don't go on and play, but that sort of few seconds we have that sort of energy.
I think that's a good word. It's like an energy that we constantly have between us. As I say, we're very flexible with it, and I do recommend that you do have structure, but I think where we have been together for such a long time now and we live together, that for us it can be very fluid. And we do obviously have our boundaries. Like if I'm working and I can't go into that space, and vice versa, we will tell each other. And also, I think we're also very conscious of just how we're feeling in the moment, like from moment to moment. And there are times when perhaps one of us isn't feeling it as much, and that's okay. And we're okay to just provide compassion and tenderness in those moments. For example, for me, there are particular fantasies that I like more at certain times of the month. And, being someone who bleeds, when I am in that time of my month, there are certain things that I don't want to do. And I would recommend to anyone who bleeds and is a submissive to really feel into that. Because, for example, with physical things like impact and sensation play, your pain thresholds are going to change and fluctuate throughout the month. And so I feel like working with your cycle is so important as well, because sometimes I'm feeling a bit more vulnerable, and certain things don't feel as good, or maybe I'm feeling more confident in certain other times. So we really work with that and what feels good.
This goes to show how much you need to explore your partner, how much you need to know about your partner, and how a BDSM dynamic only gets better with time. Because I didn't really know how to navigate our dynamic when Sarah is at the time of her month, because obviously there are certain things that she's going to be less inclined to do or enjoy, so I have to be a bit more conscious of it. So take time to learn and explore your partner and learn about what the other person wants and doesn't, because that's going to change in time as well. There are many things that at the beginning we didn't thought we like, and now we're exploring more. Again, is one of those things that you build up, and then you go into a second floor, and then the second floor enables you certain doors, and then you open that door and you put the other door in the back of your mind, and you want to revisit that, but that's resurfaced. But that only happens if you manage the right balance to explore, and communication, reflect, and aftercare.
Yeah, I think reflecting, and this is where, you know, we've been building and growing on our dynamic by reflecting and maybe noticing these patterns that, oh, okay, at this particular time, I'm not so into that. But actually at this time, I'm really, really into that. What's the difference there? What's the common theme? And, you know, going back to like working with your cycle, I think that's not just something for in BDSM dynamics, but for in any relationship, that if you are with someone who bleeds, to learn their cycle, because that can really enhance your communication and it can really enhance your sex life and your pleasure by tailoring things and really having compassion for that, and knowing that, you know, in those moments when perhaps there are times when I'm not up for doing certain things, that doesn't mean that anything is wrong in the dynamic or that we're not being consistent. It's about honouring your body and your desires. And when you can have patience and compassion for those moments when your head's not really in it, you know, not just, you know, for any reason that might be, you know, for anyone in any dynamic, if you're not feeling up to it, to not criticise yourself for that or put yourself down for that or think that you're not doing enough. It's just to go with the flow of your own lifestyle and what feels good for you and what consistency looks like for you. And if that means some days you're not able to go into that space because you've got other things going on, then honour that. That's absolutely fine. We're all human after all. We all have lives and things going on.
And going back to the root of the question, how do you, any advice that you have on how to balance that? I guess my advice would be to explore certain ratios and what works for you at that time. So go 100% for a day, see how it feels, then talk about it. Oh, that was too much. Then go 70%. Oh, that felt quite right. It was quite nice. Go nothing, and then try to explore with your partner and talk about what it feels like to go 100%. Because 100% is not going to work for you all the time.
Yeah, so pick, you know, think about the times and places where it feels good to be in your dynamic and the times and places that it doesn't. For example, you know, perhaps when you're at the office and you're in work, you don't want to drop into your subspace, even if that is over text. It's somewhere that is for you and you only want to focus on your work and that's important to you. Or perhaps it's, you know, when the kids are in the house.
As I mentioned before, you know, trying to explore that and see if that's something that you can sustain.
Yeah, sustainability is really, really important. And as I said, again, be open to being flexible, because maybe it won't work all the time, maybe it will. And I think while you're trying to figure out the dynamic and how you're splitting your time, is to have that patience with each other, because if a dominant is giving a submissive tasks and they're not able to fulfill them all, don't get mad about that necessarily. There needs to be some leeway to figure out what feels good and then to report back and have that communication. And throughout your life, the percentage split that you're doing will absolutely change. As I said, the last couple of years, we bought a house, we got a puppy. We've been incredibly busy both building our businesses. So we haven't beaten ourselves up when there are times when we haven't gotten into it. But in actual fact, somehow, like, all of this energy, the shifting energy of like moving and these new things actually brought us closer together and really shook up the dynamic completely and gave us a real fresh perspective on and the ability to welcome in new things. So having that time to reevaluate frequently as well. I say it to everyone, But, you know, going back to basics or learning together, you know, just because I'm an educator, we still do things together where we can learn new things and meet new people. So I think keeping it fresh that way is also really important. But the percentage split, it's entirely unique to you.
It will change, I guess.
And it will change. That is 100% a fact that you can't avoid, that percentage will shift frequently. Yeah. How open are you about your kinks and lifestyle? Do you hide it from family, friends and colleagues? If yes, how do you manage this?
At the beginning I did, 100%. I was, embarrassed. I was ashamed. And then I realized that, again, everybody is kinky. Everyone. Look around you. Everybody is kinky. They will all have the kinks. They will have the preference. I came to a realization that it's a losing battle because, as I said, I don't want to be hiding from everyone, but I did it gradually. It just happened naturally, gradually. Like, oh, I didn't know that you and Sarah do this. Oh yeah, we're.
And it's not like we tell them all of the details.
Yeah, you tell details to people that are interested and my god, that's really good, it's really cool. But if someone's a bit prude and we respect the boundaries, but gradually we did sort of start telling everyone. At the beginning, you didn't tell your parents.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of hard for me to hide it now because this is my job.
Yeah.
And when I first got into kink, I would talk to my friends about it, and I realised that they really didn't like me doing that. And it's only really now that I reflect on it that I realise that I should respect their boundaries and that, I am who I am and I'm not going to be ashamed of that. But at the same time, they have their boundaries and their limits around what they are comfortable in hearing. And I remember when we first got together, you did want to keep it very secretive. And it's actually been really nice. It's not like you've suddenly gone out there and telling people, oh, we're kinky. But it's when people sort of see and hear about what I do and then they sort of question what we do in our own personal relationship.
You're going to get all sort of replies. I get a lot of replies, a lot of people that are very interesting, open-minded and want to know more. Others that make fun of it and, you're into whips and bondage and hanging from ceiling with something on your mouth and all that. Stereotypes. And they make fun of it, and I take it with a pinch of salt. I actually laugh with them, and inside I think, oh well, it's just because they don't really know what is this all about. They go with a stereotype. So
that's on them.
Yeah, that's on them. That's not on you.
Yeah.
So, but you can sort of go back to the subjects that you have in common with that person that are very vanilla. It's really nothing to be ashamed of, and that person will have two options. He's going to be curious about what you just said, or he's going to be very embarrassed about what you said. But it's their journey.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about how the other person receives it, and I think we do have a duty to, respect how someone else receives it and whether they want to talk about that. But ultimately, it's up to you whether you want to tell your friends, family, etc. I mean, my family know what I do as a job, and they likely know that comes with personal experiences. Obviously, we don't talk about that. But if you wanted to be open about it with your family, then absolutely go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So just, if you feel like you want to share it with people, then, test the waters, try it out and see how it is.
And always remember that you are doing it consensual. You are an adult, and whatever you're doing with another adult that is consenting to it. So you're not doing anything wrong.
But I also understand that for those of you who maybe work in corporate jobs, for example, that you don't want your colleagues knowing or things like that. But the one thing I would say is that if you are on any platforms or in any communities and you're worried about someone seeing you or finding out, if they see you, then that means that they're on there as well. So there is that, if someone sees you on a platform, it means that they've been on that platform as well. I really, really dislike the fact that people still get judged within their jobs around what they do in their private lives to do with sex, because as you said, we're all kinky to some degree. We all have our own personal lives, so it is just down to you. We navigate it as, if it comes up in conversation, we're not going to deny it. because we're quite happy and comfortable with it. But at the same time, we're not going out and shouting it from the rooftops, because actually keeping it on the down low a little bit is also quite fun. And having that sort of separate time with the separate community makes it feel kind of special at the same time.
It is special.
Yeah, and that's actually happened to me in the past before. Like, I've seen colleagues on FetLife and things like that, and they've actually mentioned it to me, and I've just been like, all right, cool. Like, and I'm normally the one that like keeps it very casual, and the other person's usually quite embarrassed. But the thing is, I've seen loads of people that I know on FetLife. So there are more of us out there than you think, and it is so much more common than I think people expect it to be. Okay, so that is as many questions as we're going to answer today. I think we will definitely want to do a part 2 at some point. So if you have any other questions, then please just let us know. You can drop it in the comments or send me an email or a DM on Instagram. Thank you so much for coming on and answering these questions with me.
Thank you for having me. It's been really, really fun.
Yeah, and if there are any topics specifically that you'd rather us just have a discussion about on the podcast, then we'd love to hear those too. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you at the next video or the next event. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends. And if you want to continue to consciously explore your kinks, be sure to check out my upcoming workshops and events at subinthecity.com/events, or book your one-to-one BDSM exploratory session with me today at subinthecity.com/booking.